In 2019, a tragedy struck the heart of the football world as Bury FC, a beloved football club that had been an integral part of its local community for over a century, was suddenly and inexplicably destroyed. How on earth can a club with a proud legacy, passionate fan base, and the fact that it was situated close to two of football's richest and most powerful teams perish so suddenly? Well, let's take a deep dive into the death of Bury. First, I'll give you some context and a short history of Bury. Nicknamed the Shakers due to their ability to shake other teams, were a powerful and feared side in English football. Bury had been founded in 1885, making them one of the world's oldest clubs. They originally played in the Lancashire League, but were elected to join the National Football League in 1894. From the 1890s to the 1920s, Bury was flying high in the top division of English football, winning the FA Cup twice, one being a record 6-0 win in the final against Derby County, and finishing as runners-up on 3 occasions. The club's early success was largely due to the leadership of their legendary manager, David Ashworth, and the skills of their star striker, George Ross. Until the Second World War, Bury had been reasonably successful despite a couple of relegations. Being located in the popular city of Manchester, large crowds flocked to their stadium Gigg Lane to watch their beloved Bury FC. That is until neighbours Manchester United, Manchester City and Bolton Wanderers found their success, leaving the people of Manchester with more choices when it came to following a team. Bury were close to relegation from the English Second Division several times after the war, and finally dropped in 1957. From that year up until their final year, 2019, Bury would yo-yo themselves between Tier 3 and Tier 4 of the pyramid, apart from a couple of short spells back in the Second Division. Due to the fact the other football teams in Manchester were having constant glory days, Bury became an outcast, with their fan base not being as big as their rivals, and therefore little interest for investment. Evidently, this would be an example of big clubs getting richer and small clubs getting poorer. Fortunately, it wasn't until 2001 that Bury suffered from their first major financial problem, when the collapse of ITV Digital, a TV revenue company, cut a significant portion of Bury's cash flow and took the club into administration, consequently close to folding. A heroic campaign of supporters raised enough money for the club to survive. Unfortunately, Bury's finances would never fully recover. As I was researching the history of Bury, the phrase financial issues or financial problems were never seen until 2001, but appeared countless times after this date. The second major financial affair came in 2012 after Bury was placed under a transfer embargo due to poor attendance figures not bringing enough money into the club. The embargo led to Bury's relegation to Tier 4 of English football. Ultimately, a downward spiral is created. Bury don't have enough money to invest in players, meaning the team struggle for results, leading to people not coming to watch the team, leading to further financial problems, and then leading to even more poor results. It would take a rich investor to pull Bury out of this decline, or a miracle season where Bury could taste some glory and earn prize money and ticket revenue. And that is exactly what happened. In the summer of 2018, ex-player Ryan Lowe was appointed first-team manager, and Lee Dykes became their first ever sporting director. A new, modern youth development system was introduced which allowed Bury to promote stars from their academy rather than spend their valuable money on players from other clubs. On the pitch, the team progressed to the EFL Trophy National Semi-Final and enjoyed a great season in League 2. Bury went 14 successive matches unbeaten before winning promotion to League 1 after a 1-1 draw at Tranmere Rovers. Also, mid-season, businessman Steve Dale bought the club for just £1. Yeah, you heard that right. £1 is all it costs to buy Bury FC. However, the new owner did have to pay off an outstanding tax bill to keep the club going for another year. With their promotion and new ownership, a bright future seemed likely for Bury. However, behind the scenes, things remained ugly. In April 2019, it had been brought to light that the staff and players of Bury did not receive their March salary in time, and a winding up petition was heard in the High Court. The EFL showed, quote, extreme concern, mainly as there was doubt that Bury would continue to actually play. The owner Steve Dale hugely messed up and admitted Bury's financial problems were way worse than he originally thought. As a result, he placed Bury back on the open market. Around £1.6 million would be needed to pay off the financial problems. It seemed highly unlikely that the mess would be sorted out within a small 2-month period. On the 19th of June, with still no buyer for the club, the deadline for the winding up petition was adjusted to the 31st of July. Steve Dale managed to propose a voluntary agreement to ensure 25% of the money owed would certainly be paid off. Fortunately, this allowed the winding up petition to be scrapped entirely, and legally, Bury were in a much better place. Problems arose again, but this time they were caused by the EFL, the English Football League. Under the EFL rules, the voluntary agreement which the owner provided had uncertainty to it, and the club would be punished with a 12-point deduction ahead of the new 2019-20 season. Bury's preparation for their new season was even further impacted by the departure of Ryan Lowe and several first-team players. On July the 25th, the EFL had held talks with Bury, asking for proof of clarification as to how the financial problems would be completely 100% paid off. Otherwise, the EFL would suspend Bury from the leagues. As the proof was not provided in time for the opening match of the new season, Bury were forced to suspend that game as well as 4 further league games. On August the 8th, the EFL contacted Bury to demand a plan within 14 days of how their debt would be paid off. During this time, owner Steve Dale received a surprising offer to sell the club. Selfishly, Dale rejected this offer as he believed he could get a better one. Local members of parliament stepped in, begging the EFL to extend their deadlines, and it would be impossible to pay off the increasing debts in such a short and strict space of time. The EFL granted extra time of just 48 hours. Luckily, 4 parties showed interest in taking over the club. Steve Dale agreed to sell the club to one of those parties. The following day, an EFL board meeting gave Bury until 5 PM on the 27th of August to complete this sale. Bolton Wanderers, a club just 13 miles away, also suffered financial problems and had this same 5 PM 27th of August deadline, or they too would be thrown out of the Football League. The highly popular channel Sky Sports documented the 2 club stories, but fans were left disgusted after the news channel provided a disgraceful countdown to the last moments of these 2 historic football clubs. A countdown similar to the one they show on the transfer deadline day. It was a heartbreaking sight for football fans everywhere when news broke that Bury FC was on the brink of collapse. But instead of sitting idly by, supporters from clubs all over the country sprang into action. They descended upon Bury's beautiful stadium, Gigg Lane, armed with Save Bury signs and a fierce determination to fight for the football club. One passionate Bury fan and former director, Joy Hart, took her protest to the next level, chaining herself to the front of the stadium in a brave and powerful statement against owner Steve Dale and the EFL for their lack of action in saving the struggling club. But it wasn't just the fans who were suffering. The players, who hadn't been paid in months, were also feeling the weight of the situation. Winger Harry Bunn spoke candidly about the financial struggles they were facing, with some players even having to put their houses up for sale.
Yeah, it's one I never really thought I'd get myself into, and I don't think anyone, all the lads and obviously all the staff, ever thought it would ever come to this point, and you never really think in football something like this would happen, and obviously it's happened, and now it's like you're trying to deal with a situation you never thought you'd be in, so it's a difficult one, and we've done obviously the best we could in a bad situation. Obviously we ended up getting promoted, which obviously is the best case scenario that happened, but obviously now we're in the off season and it seems things are just getting worse and worse and worse, and it's a difficult time, but it's one that's obviously hopefully in the future obviously make us strong and obviously make Sanderson good stay going forward.
So you haven't been paid in how long now? What's the situation?
Since March. I got paid March's wage obviously a few weeks ago, but apart from that I've not had sort of April, May's. I've literally had no communication. We don't get any communication from the chairman, we don't get any communication from the club, so obviously now we haven't got a manager, so it's a situation where we don't know what's going on, and we feel like supporters really, because we don't get any information. So we need the chairman to come out and give us something to otherwise we're going to lose the players, and it's going to be a situation where the season's going to be starting in 6 weeks' time, and we're not going to have a team or a manager or something to go forward with, and it's going to be a shame, because it's what last season was really successful for the club, and it's got back into League One, and now it needs to be going forward and going in the right direction.
Thankfully, the also struggling Bolton Wanderers had been bought and saved by new investors, with Bolton being on the rise ever since. But for the case of Bury, their new potential investors pulled out of the agreement shortly before that 5 PM deadline, and a sad and unfair result, the EFL announced that Bury would be expelled from the Football League. Allegations were proven that Steve Dale rejected a very late bid for the club from a Brazilian-backed potential buyer. Furthermore, he had tried to engineer a payout to a newly formed company, which was run by his daughter's partner. All players, staff and 140 youth players were dismissed and released from Bury FC. Bury FC, the Shakers, had died, and a part of the town had died with it. I mentioned in the intro, Bury is situated close to Manchester United and Manchester City, two of the biggest and richest clubs in world football. I asked myself, why didn't they step in and do more to stop Bury from going under? Of course, it is unfair to suggest that they pay off Bury's troubles. Instead, I believe the clubs could have held a friendly match with gate receipts and donations going to their struggling neighbour, or even just share the struggle of Bury on their platforms to spread the word that Bury need help. Nevertheless, there are many what ifs in this entire story. Sadly, of course, the town of Bury had lost one of its defining features, something that brought people together, something that was a source of pride for the community. The death of the Shakers left a huge hole in the hearts of many people of the town. For the residents of Bury, Gigg Lane was more than just a stadium. It was a symbol of the town's history, being built in 1885, a place where generations of families had come together to cheer on their team. On match days, the streets would be filled with people wearing their blue and white scarves, excited for the game ahead. But now, the streets were empty. The only sounds coming from the occasional car driving by. The expulsion had a ripple effect throughout the town. Local cafes and businesses that relied on matchday trade were struggling. Many showed for sale signs in their windows as they were unable to cope with the loss of income. The Rose and Crown, a popular pub among Bury fans, was now empty and struggling to stay afloat. The pub's walls were adorned with Bury shirts and memorabilia, a reminder of the team that once played just a stone's throw away. But perhaps the saddest sight of all was Gigg Lane itself. The once vibrant and busy stadium was now a shadow of what it used to be. It sat empty, lifeless and decaying. The seats were covered in a layer of dust and the grass on the pitch had grown long and wild. The groundsmen who used to tend to the pitch were nowhere to be seen, and the stadium's floodlights remained unlit. The loss of Bury FC had left a hole in the town's identity, and many were left wondering what the future held. Would another team come and take Bury FC's place? Would Gigg Lane be resurrected in some form? Only time would tell, but for now, the people of Bury mourn the loss of their beloved team and the impact it had on their community. On the 30th of August, Bury were considering legal action against the EFL over its expulsion, but this was unsuccessful. And on the 27th of November 2020, Dale placed the club into administration with debts of now over £15 million. The stadium was put up for sale, and now Bury FC are history. In the aftermath of Bury FC's expulsion, there were calls for greater financial regulation in professional football. Many people felt that the EFL had failed to adequately monitor the club's finances and prevent its collapse. It's easy to forget that without proper financial management and support, these clubs can quickly find themselves in dire straits. It's not just Bury and Bolton who have suffered financially. I could go on about other teams like Bournemouth, Luton, Southampton, Wrexham and so many more that have been punished by the similar ignorance shown to Bury. It would take a massive payoff of debt, an application to rejoin the FA at the bottom of the football pyramid, and countless other implications to restore Bury FC. In the end, it made more sense to start a fresh new Phoenix club named Bury AFC. Bury AFC is a completely fan-owned club and has enjoyed considerable success since its inception. They were promoted from the bottom tier, the 10th division of English football, football and are now looking to climb the ranks once again. Who knows, perhaps Bury AFC will one day rise back up to the 3rd division like their previous team once stood, and then even go on to gain entry into the Premier League. It is certainly possible. Currently, Bury AFC ground shares with local non-league side Radcliffe. There are plans to build a new stadium in the future. However, the existence of Bury AFC has not been without controversy. Bury FC as an organisation still technically exists, and many people continue to support the team despite there not really being anything to support. Some die-hard fans refuse to support Bury AFC, arguing that it is not the same club. Plans have been put in place to merge the two entities, but Bury FC fans have strongly protested against this, feeling that it would not truly restore their beloved club. A Bury AFC supporters leader has said, "We, Bury AFC, have got a team with no stadium, and on the other side, Bury FC have a stadium but no football team. A merger is the only real way forward, but what the future holds is uncertain. It seems likely that Bury AFC will be the only club in town, and it is unfortunate to say that the historic Bury FC will probably never exist as a team again. However, the spirit and passion of the fans who fought so hard to save their club live on in Bury AFC, and who knows what the future may hold for this young and ambitious team." Please comment below with your thoughts on the entire situation. If you are a Bury fan, I would especially love to know your opinion and what you think the future holds. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. Click the video on screen to learn about how the video game Football Manager is changing the real life world of football forever. See you there.